folks, what's happening? And welcome back to Coffee Time with Almeida. Today is Wednesday, June. No, it's freaking not even June. I can't read my own writing. Wednesday, May 27th. Yeah. Beautiful day here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We have Gabriel Rodriguez on today. We get to him in a second and bring him on so we can say hello to us. I just wanted to say, I went down to pick up some to-go food from the Tasty last night. It was awesome. Took a little ride down the waterfront. Saw a bunch of assholes with no masks on. It was great. Bunch of assholes with no masks on. So wear a fucking mask. I really don't think anybody who's watching my show isn't wearing a mask. But you might know some people who aren't wearing masks, so I highly suggest shaming them into wearing masks. And an extra special fuck Donald Trump this morning. Fuck that piece of shit. And let's gonna bring on Gabriel. Shot here. Gabe, what's happening? Oh shit, I didn't have you muted. I hadn't muted, buddy, sorry. What's happening? Job opening over here.
Hey, how's it going? I'm not an asshole, I got it.
Oh, look, you're even wearing one in your house.
I know. You never know.
You never know if you got the COVID.
For real.
And that's why we wear the masks, right? Because you don't know if you have it or if you don't have it.
That's right.
I want to put both my earphones in today. Oh, I got you in both ears now, baby. So what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Like I told you earlier, it's been a while since I've been up this early. Our industry is usually night people, but don't have the little one today. She's with her mom in New Jersey, and so I had to get up, make sure that I was here on time. Got some breakfast in me.
Nice. Yeah, I texted you at like 8:31. It's like, what's up?
Yeah.
It was ahead of the
good. I
game.
woke up right at that time.
I don't have a collared shirt on today. That's where I'm at. But what are you gonna do? Go do some laundry. So you are in Westchester, right?
Yeah, about 45 minutes north of the Bronx.
And what were you doing before COVID?
So, I've been a culinary instructor now for the past couple of years. My previous job right before everything kind of went down was the culinary director at the Grayson Foundation. It's in Yonkers, New York, and it's a nonprofit business that provides job services and job training services for people who are have gone through the prison and even ex-addicts, ex-alcoholics, really people who need these kind of services in order to secure and find a job, because it is kind of their last chance. But everyone deserves at least a second chance, I believe. So we were doing a lot of good work before everything started.
And now you're closed down indefinitely.
Yeah, unfortunately, they were doing the program about twice a year. It's a 10-week program. And unfortunately, we work off grants. And we weren't able really to secure a second one for the semester right kind of before the whole COVID thing went down. And because it is secured with grants now, with everything being closed, that's kind of not important, I guess, if you will. Finding a grant is going to be nearly impossible. And that goes for a lot of things, not just the Grayson Foundation. Many different programs that relied on these government grants were completely shut out. So it's not just myself that, found myself out of a job, but it's a lot of these people who are looking for these programs to get a job and to start over their life. And it's a kind of, a domino effect, if you will. A lot of these people, like I said, they're here for the kind of their last chance, and you never know what might happen when you kind of lose what you had. You may go back to that kind of life. You just never know. There's just a lot of people that are affected by that, not just myself.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's how you say it's a domino effect, right? And all these people that are looking to learn some new skills just to try to get straight or whatever they have to do. Now they're on an indefinite holding pattern.
Yeah.
You know.
Especially the hospitality industry, it's it, we don't know exactly where it's kind of going to go. I know once we start reopening, and hopefully all the states do it in a safe manner, because we have to have business. People need jobs. People need to pay for food and other things, and but we also have to make sure everybody's safe. It's a nasty disease. It's one of those things that strips people of dignity. I see not only just the people who, I'll tell you a story later about my grandmother, but people who just have had it before. Now, sometimes other people, and even their friends are looking at them like, lepers and that kind of thing. It has like this really weird stigma attached to it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate thing. But the hospitality industry will bounce back. We have to. This is once you went into this industry, you went into it knowing that hospitality people, basically, we sacrifice our happiness to provide that for other people. We work those late nights, we work those weekends, we get home at 4 a.m. To entertain guests, to give them kind of a little separation from reality. We give them their happiness, like I said, and we sacrifice our own. And hopefully, as we start to reopen slowly, we'll bounce back to where it was, or maybe even better. I know people are really getting a kind of cabin fever and want to go out. I think I saw some Rhode Island places are opening now. Maybe at
Yeah, like they're doing like outdoor seating. I think
okay,
next week they open up to like 50% indoor capacity though, so I don't know what that's going to be like.
right.
I know that I would
Yeah.
probably go dine outdoors, but I don't know about indoors. You know.
Yeah, I mean, even wearing a mask kind of makes me nervous about it, and having a young child, she's 5 years old now. We both became fathers for the first time right around the same time, actually.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of nerve-wracking, and now things with the Kawasaki thing going around, it keeps on, something else keeps on going on. I mean, even then, kind of reopening churches at 25% capacity or 100 people, and everyone kind of talking about freedom of religion and this and this and amendments. The thing is, church is not religion. That I think people get that confused. You're able to practice your own thing, but going to a place of worship is not religion. You can pray at home, you can speak to God at home, and you can do it in a safe way until we figure out what's going on. I think people really need to assess what the main goal is, and it's conserving life and conserving the health of yourself and other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. One of the first guests on this show, Holly Norwick, she is a virtual pastor. So she does virtual service, and they do it. A group of folks that work for the church put together a whole sermon, and then they upload it to YouTube.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's definitely ways for people to go to church, watch it on TV. What you got in there? Got some tea in there?
So I love the taste of coffee. So this is some tea here. It's lemon peel, clove, and ginger. My voice was a little scratchy yesterday, so I'm just instead of having my regular kind of tea, decaffeinated tea, drinking a little bit of herbal tea here, soothing the throat.
Yeah, my allergies drive me crazy.
Careful, once you go outside, you sneeze and cough. People wonder.
I know, like I live in the woods. I'm like, stay away from me. Don't come over here. That's you. Leave me alone. So let's talk about your mom and your grandmother.
Sure. So April 21st, my grandmother got really sick, and her home aide found her passed out on the floor. And my mother is a registered nurse, lives pretty close to where my grandmother lives. It's a kind of a senior living, not a home, like they have independence, like they can go out and do whatever. But she went over there, and ended up taking her to a hospital here in Westchester County, because unfortunately, a lot of the hospitals within the boroughs, they are overcrowded, and a lot of the time people are not getting the kind of care that they need. So we took her to a hospital out here. She was diagnosed with COVID on that day, April 21st. Subsequently, my mother took a test the day after, which came back negative. And a week later after that, my grandmother passed away due to, health concerns for her age, but also COVID played a major role in that as well. So, we couldn't have a wake for her. I don't know if anybody knows what's going on here, but basically, it's not only that you're alone inside of a hospital. So my grandmother wasn't able to see her daughter, my mom, or her son, my uncle. She was basically just inside of a bed and inside of a room by herself when she passed away, which is really heartbreaking. And, for the Latin community, when we have someone pass in a family, it's a big deal. The wake and the funeral are a big deal. It's kind of our way of, and many people's way of, closure and sending the person off and having all those memories and that laughter with your family about, those things and looking at pictures. And COVID pretty much destroys that. You are kind of left with no dignity as a COVID patient, just being on your own. You're not allowed to see anybody there. And if you do pass from it, you are not allowed to have a wake. The body has to be processed and, basically put away so that in case there was any possibility of a contagion, they'd nullify that by not having anyone see. So my mother and our family kind of got robbed from a wake with my grandmother, which was really heartbreaking. And we have a family plot in Puerto Rico where a lot of the people from our family are buried. And it was my grandmother's wish to go back there. So my mother, my sister, and uncle went out to Puerto Rico to go bury my grandmother. And when they got there, about a couple of days before her actual funeral, she was cremated. My mother was feeling ill, and she went to the hospital and was also diagnosed with COVID. So she had to be quarantined inside the hospital for 2 weeks. They wouldn't let her out. They wouldn't let her get visitors. So my sister couldn't see her. I couldn't see her. Luckily, it didn't affect my mom as bad. She didn't have a lot of those kind of respiratory symptoms, maybe like a light pneumonia. But she was in good health before that. So she went through it. But we were still kind of in the dark about what was going on with her. We couldn't get in touch with her all the time if we wanted to, which was scary. But it also robbed my mother of the funeral for her mom. So not only did she not get to have a proper wake for her mother, but she didn't even get to say goodbye on her funeral day because they wouldn't let her outside. Afterwards, when she was finally released, and they were staying like kind of at an Airbnb on the island, everything kind of just came full circle. It's just she was able to get released, but they weren't able to let her fly. So she was kind of, I guess, what they call flagged or marked as someone who was infected, and they wouldn't let her, leave the island, basically. Which, we understand. My mom works in the healthcare field, and I support that also. I don't think that if you're diagnosed with it, you should be flying. It's just one cabin where you could possibly affect a lot of other people. But, ended up being, instead of a 2-week mourning, it ended up being, 4 weeks of her being stuck in PR until she was able to test negative, which, thank God, last week she tested negative. So she was able to get through it. My sister and my uncle were healthy as well. They took their tests and they came back negative as well. And they're actually coming back tonight. So I'll be seeing them. I haven't seen them in about a month now. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy she's coming home, but sad that the family. It's just such a devastating thing to not be able to send someone off, and that's the most, I think, the most painful part of this disease. It's just like I said, it strips your dignity. It just doesn't give anyone closure. Um, and when you pass from it again, it's that stigma that people think, that everybody has it around them, is unfortunate. But you kind of got to have that idea in their head and play that through, that potentially anyone around them has it as well. And you should be quarantining as well. So to be on the safe side, I also made sure that even though I didn't have any contact with my grandmother, and I made sure that I was staying home for a good month and not going outside and doing my part, wearing masks.
That's a crazy story, dude. I have a feeling there's a bunch of those across the country, And we had a little scare. My father-in-law, he was in the hospital, but I think they're sending him back to the assisted living facility today. So I can't imagine what you have to deal with that, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what's Puerto Rico like right now?
Well, from what I heard, I mean, I haven't been to the island in over 30 years. I mean, last time I remember there, I just remember lizards and checking your shoes for enormous bugs before you put them on. So those are my last memory. And getting an Alf puzzle for Christmas, and I was not happy about it. But from what I hear, I mean, the island is, as we know already, is still suffering after the wake of the hurricane. There's still some places that don't have power. There are a lot of buildings that are left destroyed, their infrastructure gone. And, this takes its toll on other things like healthcare. So the healthcare, Puerto Rico's not really known for great healthcare around the island. And that's unfortunate because in the last couple of weeks, in the last month or so, they had a huge surge in COVID cases. I believe a month ago was up 50% the infection rate on the island. And for such a secluded place that may not have the greatest health care compared to the mainland, that's a really scary thing. It's there are a lot of older people on the island as well. A lot of people end up moving back to the island after they've been in the States. And you couple that with a healthcare system that's not great in the United States in general, but is worse on some of their territories like Puerto Rico and that kind of thing. It makes for a really bad situation where people are, forget about respirators and things of that nature. People don't even have masks or PPE and those kind of things. And it's kind of, that forgotten little island, which has been since, 1898, its inception, since it's been around. And the people there are just as American as anybody else. They served in the military, they pay the taxes and things of that nature. And I seem to think that, and I think a lot of people seem to think that, the United States just really doesn't care. So long as they're getting whatever product or things that they need from the island, they just don't mind. It just kind of goes under the radar, a lot of things that are going on. But I'm hoping within the next month or so, when we start getting better treatments for it, we get the same kind of services on the island as well. But it's
Has
not
it always
looking
been
great.
that bad? Or since the hurricane made things a lot worse, right? So.
Well, I don't know 100% if it's always been that bad. Don't get me wrong. There are some,
as far as the United States not giving a shit about the territory.
That has always been the case. I mean, if you look back at things like, the history of what they've done to the people, I mean, you can find some really tragic shit, like people testing birth control on women without their knowledge of it, or just doing it and not explaining the kind of severity or, potential life-threatening things that might happen to it. people not being respected for, being in the military and serving. My grandfather was in the Korean War. My uncle was in the Vietnam War. And to a lot of people in America who just don't understand that Puerto Ricans are American citizens, they just treat us kind of like secondhand. So they really don't care about any kind of service. They don't care how much we contribute and export. So yeah, it's always been like that. I wish I could tell you more facts about it. My sister is actually really adept in that background, knowing what we've kind of gone through and still continue to go through. But yeah, it's always been that we've been second-class citizens. We're either not American or, yeah, that's pretty much it. You're not American or you're not American enough.
That's crazy, and do you think that they'll ever become a state?
I don't know. There's a lot of debates and things to be said about becoming a state or gaining their own independence. The thing is, Puerto Rico is in debt, a ton of money, and they are using those kind of things to kind of hold the Puerto Ricans hostage, if you will.
So isn't Kentucky,
Some
but
people,
sorry.
yeah.
You know?
So, some people wanted to become a state. Some people want to become their own country. Some people wanted to remain the status quo. I really don't have an opinion on it because I haven't looked into, enough information from an economic standpoint of how that would go. But, some people want to become a state, but there's bound to be a lot of backlash with that. Require saying we have 51 states now, changing the flag and adding a star. All these little things
Oh my
that a lot of
gosh, I
people
know.
would have problems. Like how dare you add a star to our
gosh.
flag?
Well, for the overall system, I could see it being beneficial because there would be another seat in the Senate and some more seats in the House, right? Probably Democratic seats. That's probably a huge roadblock to why it would ever become a state. And, we all know the federal government doesn't give a shit about sending states money or PPE. So you might not. That's the only benefit you're going to get is you're going to get a senator, probably,
Yeah,
But there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, I think everyone saw it all when, Trump was throwing paper towels at our people. When a ton of people had died, thousands of people had died, and no one wants to admit that. But it's crazy. It sounds like almost conspiracy theory shit. Like no one believes that the actual death toll is what it is. Yeah, you saw it all in just that one thing when our president was just throwing paper towels at our people like he was shooting, a basketball. And that's really all you need to know about the way the United States feels about Puerto Rico. And this could go even into the Obama years and Clinton and all the Democratic stuff. We've always been that forgotten kind of area. They always thought we were okay by ourselves. And again, us being in debt, which you saw is a lot, is with all the destruction that happened with the hurricane, it was just a massive land grab on people who were very, very rich. It's easy when things are destroyed to buy land and buy areas where you can turn it into hotels and tourist destinations and stuff and make a ton of money because people are desperate. Not to mention there is a ton of corruption in the island from our own leaders within the island. So that doesn't help things in terms of getting us to a place where we need to be. So it's both coming from the island and from the States, which is really unfortunate. It's heartbreaking.
Shit's crazy. Oh, my kids are screaming. Can you hear them? No, it's fucking crazy, man. You figure that we are the greatest country in the world, or we're supposed to be the greatest country in the world, that we would take care of our people, regardless of not if you have a statehood.
Yeah.
It's insane. All right. Well, tell us a little about. You've been doing some homeschooling.
Yeah. So, well, with everything that's been happening, they closed down all the schools here, and my daughter Emma is 5 years old, and she's in kindergarten, and she goes to school in New Jersey. So we've been, when they started deciding to close down the schools, all the kids had to stay home. So her mother and I were alternating weeks. So one week I would have her, and one week she would have her, and we would have to start the homeschooling. Now, when they started the homeschooling, nobody really was prepared for it. The teachers weren't prepared for it, administration, the states, and the parents weren't prepared for it either. As you know, once kids start going to school, and if you work kind of a regular 9 to 5, we rely on that for childcare, essentially, and free childcare at that. So once the kids started to stay home, a lot of people had to make decisions. Are they going to be able to stay with their grandparents? Are their grandparents able to, help with the school that's online? And since no one was prepared, and there wasn't really a plan or anything, a lot of the teachers were just basically pushed into putting together, some kind of program that was kind of throughout the whole school. So all the kindergarten classes would learn the same stuff, have to do the same projects. And what I found was, since no one was prepared in that regard, I was lucky enough not to be working at the time, so I can take care of my kid full time throughout the day. Her mother, on the other hand, works a 9 to 5, and sometimes she works late, and she doesn't come home till 7 o'clock or so, and has to do the homework with her at that time. Now, the particular school she goes to, they essentially give a PowerPoint presentation about what they have to learn, and the parents became the teachers like overnight. It was while they had a couple sessions with Zoom throughout the week, and maybe would see some of the lessons. The parents were doing 95% of the teaching at this point. And my kid alone would have about 2 to 3 hours of work a day, going from each of the different subjects. And I could only imagine what it's like to have more than one child. So you have more than one kid, and then maybe you're an essential employee and you have to go into work. It makes for a really unfortunate kind of circumstance in that parents get frustrated with the kids because they're probably not used to having them for the full day and teaching them, and also maybe having to try to find a job or even work from home. So they had to figure that out. And, children who were used to having, that social, that social means with their friends, and having all the equipment that the teachers had to make teaching, and educating easier, were gone. We were left with basically, if your school district was lucky enough to have the money, they sent you home with a tablet or a notebook and maybe a Wi-Fi place. If you weren't, maybe you got just a tablet and you have to use your own Wi-Fi. And if you really weren't lucky, you didn't have either. You had to see that you had some kind of computer or something at home. Not all the districts were able to provide those kind of things to have that learning experience that were necessary. And that's a really sad thing that, depending on what zip code you are, is going to determine the quality of education that you have. Because a lot of the funding for education comes from, housing taxes. And if you live in a poor neighborhood, not a lot of money coming in.
Yeah, it's too bad. And they're talking about drastic school budget cuts coming next fall. So it's not, how's it going to get any better? It feels like all of the pieces of society are the dominoes crumbling. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the education thing, I see in a couple of years, maybe 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a drastic amount of mental health issues with children and or parents, because parents can get frustrated, children get frustrated with the parents, and sometimes it just goes overboard. There's people who lose their cool really easily, and would yell at their kid if they're not getting it because they don't understand, and then the kids get frustrated with their parents and stuff, and it just leads to this divide within the family that shouldn't be there. That type of stress should be alleviated with more tools that the teachers have at the schools to provide them with some kind of different scenery. You go to a different classroom, you go outside, you have some playtime and that kind of stuff. Over here at home, it's there's nothing to do anymore when you go outside. Like at least now it's getting a little bit warmer, but when it was colder, I mean, there's nothing really you can do outside. So all the activities are inside, and everyone's kind of driving each other crazy. So you'll definitely see. I mean, it's already started now. Like the mental health issues that are going on with adults and losing their job or being furloughed or can't find anything because their industry is completely shut down like ours is. There's all of a sudden restaurants were closed and everybody front of house and back of house just didn't have any income. And if you really relied on tips and that kind of stuff, if you even got unemployment, like got through the phone to unemployment to make a request, you're not making much money. If they give you 60% of your paycheck, if you're making 100 grand, yeah, that's all right. That's great. You could survive on 60 grand a year or something like that. Or the max, I think, is they give you 600 a week, which is possible. A lot of people live on that now. But if you were making a fraction of that, 60% is nothing. $250 a week is not paying rent. It's not paying for food.
A lot of servers and
certainly
bartenders,
not paying for childcare.
No, and a lot of servers and bartenders don't claim all their tips, right? So I know servers that were getting like $125 a week. So that system is flawed, obviously.
Yeah, it's a painful thing. I mean, and I just I just don't see it getting better right away. It will. Everything always repairs itself at some point, but it may not get to where we were before. We have an insane president, and now our saving grace is say it ain't Joe, and it's we're left with choosing, like kind of the lesser, lesser of two evils, so to speak. But Joe Biden doesn't necessarily speak to my heart, and like Bernie Sanders did, and he doesn't speak to a lot of people's hearts, to be honest. I think a lot of people know that, unfortunately, he's full of shit. Also, he's just another politician, and he's kind of riding Obama's coattails, essentially.
Oh yeah.
So you were left with this guy who barely remembers what he said the day before, and when he does say something, he just stumbles over his words so badly that it seems like he almost means what he says, like if he makes a mistake, if you will. And then Trump, like he's looking for that. That's exactly what he wants. He wants people to not have faith in the opponent, and I can almost guarantee that he's going to win. This election.
I don't know. I'm having faith that he's not going to.
I want to have faith too, man. Share some of that with me, bro, because I'm getting nervous as hell. Because the last 4 years have not been good for many, many reasons. Not just Trump, but I think a lot of people, we need a bone thrown to us. We need a break. Because things aren't going our way and haven't been for quite some time.
Yeah. I was just reading the article yesterday about the Democrats having and not saying the Democrats are the solution to everything, but they have a real chance of taking the Senate back over in the fall.
I think that would be our one kind of saving grace or silver lining.
It has to happen. If the Democrats don't get the Senate and the presidency, we're totally fucked. Totally fucked.
Big time. Here's hoping, man.
I hope, yeah. Hey, sure. to hope. Yeah, to hope. Yeah. So you've been binge watching anything?
Pretty much everything. I watched the entire season of Game of Thrones, or the entire series of Game of Thrones again. Probably in a span of 4 or 5 days. Like, I just didn't sleep. Just went through that. What else?
Ozark?
I binge watched the Umbrella Academy.
Oh, I gotta watch that. Is it good?
I just started watching, I'm big on anime, so I never got to watch Avatar, so I started watching that with my kid.
They have a new one coming up too, I think.
Yeah, Netflix is making their own, because the movie that M. Night Shyamalan did was so bad. It was like, if you see the cartoon series, like a lot of these people, what they draw, they look Asian or they're kind of dark skinned. Yeah. All the people who were supposed to be Asian are white in the movie, and all the other people are like Pakistani or
Now, the second movie or the first movie?
I haven't seen the second one. I just
I
saw
don't
the
think the
first
second one's out.
Airbender movie. Yeah, just the first, the Airbender one at M. Night Shyamalan. It just didn't seem very authentic. And even after an hour, you were just like, I guess it was supposed to be more than one movie, but the first one was so bad that he just didn't do anything afterwards.
Oh man. What you video games?
I've been doing a lot of mobile stuff. I got rid of my PlayStation for a while, so just stuff that's kind of you know, I stopped watching the news for a while because everything, even on the the networks that I favor, everything is just bad news. It's just sad stuff, and yes, it's true and stuff, but I felt like at a certain point around 2 weeks ago, like I just couldn't take it anymore. Just watching the news and just seeing all the bad shit and the death toll rising and the infection rate rising over here was so unbelievably depressing that I just gave up. I decided that if I was going to watch news, it was going to be something local. So I get a little taste of what's going on in my immediate area and the minimal information I need to make sure I'm prepared for anything.
You think Cuomo's doing a good job?
You know what? I do. I mean, I think he really kind of stepped up, and he had to. He doesn't really have the best ratings over in New York before, but I think he really stepped up and spoke for New York and made sure that he was getting the attention of the president and you know kind of going for everything that he could. Things like requesting 40,000 respirators, which we didn't end up needing, but he wanted to make sure that we had what we needed because the reality is New York was the epicenter of everything because everything goes to New York. So all those big airports, everyone that comes here to visit, the tourists, even people from other states, so they come into New York and it just started spreading. It was like that video game Plague Inc. Like just like that. You could just see all those different, like that red color kind of going through. And when we first started noticing it, like that big eruption in New Rochelle, which is just about 40 minutes from me, also in Westchester, everyone started getting really nervous. But we kind of adapted. We made sure we tried to get as much PPE as possible. My mother is a nurse, and she doesn't work directly with COVID patients, but she's in the vicinity of that. So I was the one, like, when things first started going down, I had some N95 masks just in my emergency kit, and I gave them to her to make sure she had something, because before they were just giving like the surgical masks for a long time. But I think Cuomo's done a pretty good job. He's definitely gotten into the president's ear. He's tried to deal with the president that he's like, he knows Trump is a retard, but he's just trying to play businessman, trying to get what you need to do. And
he's leading by example. It's like he is what the president should be.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely do better than Cuomo for president too. But he's doing exactly that. Like, he's keeping us informed. He was on daily kind of updates for New Yorkers, and his brother actually caught COVID and was doing his. He works for CNN. He was doing his cast from home. So just to know that your family is is affected by it directly, I think it gave him also kind of a insight into what it's like, the reality that anybody could potentially be infected or get sick. But I think he's done a good job. I hope it continues to go this way and we're flattening out the curve, and he's not one to he's not opening things too fast, which is great. A lot of the southern states are, we get it. People need to make money. We need to have commerce and stuff like that. But, they're reopening so fast. I don't know, you saw these, the videos of the Ozark and people having just enormous parties. Hundreds of people there, nobody wearing a mask, everybody in the pool hanging out.
Yeah, so irresponsible. But, people only care about themselves. America.
Basically.
We only care about ourselves.
Yeah, and had they had their mayors or governors and stuff been as strict as kind of Cuomo is now, hopefully their infection rate doesn't increase, because that's obviously going to affect everybody in the country. But I think we all know that it is. There's bound to be a spike there. If one person had it at that pool party, everybody has it there now. Like, there's no way that it couldn't have spread. But we don't have the restaurants here. It's painful. We don't have, I'm a culinary instructor and schools are closed, so there's no jobs for me now. Chefs and all this stuff, and all the things that we're seeing on TV. Like, there's just, New York is all about kind of restaurants and the hospitality industry, and we lost that in one single swipe. And I know we're dying to get back to work and to do something, but we have to play it safe, and that's where I think Cuomo did the best job. He's limiting the opening and slowing that down more than most people, and I think that's why we're seeing New York start to kind of flatten out, and hopefully it continues, and throughout the fall and winter, when it could potentially resurface as we've heard before.
Oh man, shit's crazy. Hopefully it doesn't. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna catch up with you later. I gotta find that picture of us with you, me, and Carlos and the kids.
Yeah, it's definitely in 2015, because I know they were all 1 year old. So,
I think it's on my hard drive somewhere. I thought it was on social media, but maybe just got social media things come and go.
Cool. Yeah, I actually have a new Facebook account, so I don't have any of the old pictures.
I know. I think I was like, it's not on Gabe's anymore. But cool, man. Well, hey, I'm just gonna have you chill for a second, and I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody. Now I'll be right back.
You got it.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for joining us on Coffee Time with Almeida here on Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow we have Sean Mills on the show. He is a video producer. He does this really cool virtual funeral thing. He also shows houses virtually. I'm gonna have Amy Silver introduce him to me, so that's kind of cool. I actually have never met him in person, so we did talk on the telephone, but tomorrow the interview will be cool. And it's a beautiful day. Get outside, do some gardening. If you are going out, please wear your mask. If your friends are going out, make them wear their mask. If your family's going out, make them wear their mask. And if you don't have a mask, don't fucking go out. All right, folks, I leave you with myself singing a silly song. Coffee time without